Hey. Welcome to episode 157 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman. You may have noticed the life often doesn't go quite as we have planned. My guest today she encountered this and then something happened. You'll have to stay tuned for more on that story. But first, this.
Today's guest, Natalie Susi.
Well, welcome back. Let me tell you about Natalie Susi. Natalie learned the lesson that things don't go always as planned during the 2008 financial crisis. She went from being a college English professor to being unemployed. And what did she do? She pulled the rug back underneath herself and entered the world of entrepreneurship, building her brand, Bear Organic Mixers. Besides building the company from scratch, Natalie learned to navigate the sourcing, bottling, manufacturing, and distribution process of the food and beverage industry, which I imagine is very different from being a college professor. Check this out. Her tenacity paid off. In 2014, Bear Organic Mixers was acquired by a leading natural foods company, and she stayed on as the brand ambassador. But that's not all. Forbes.com named her one of the top 10 female entrepreneurs to watch in San Diego, and she has appeared in Pacific Magazine, the LA Times, E! Online, People Magazine, and even Bravo's Millionaire Maker. Currently, Natalie specializes in providing conscious communication coaching. That's an alliteration to executives, entrepreneurs, and esteemed business leaders in their teams. She has also returned to her roots in education and serves as a professor at the University of California, San Diego. She teaches a communication course called The Pursuit of Happiness. That just sounds awesome. Please help me welcome Natalie Susi. Hi, Natalie.
Hi there. That was quite an intro. Thank you. I haven't been on a podcast or introduced like that ever. So thank you. That was very kind.
What we don't always hear reflections on ourselves like that. What was that like for you to hear that summary of your life?
Yeah, it was great because, you're very thorough when you put together a podcast, and it's been a while since I've been on them. And even though I've been on many, I noticed in the process of getting ready for yours that there was just like no concern about anything. Everything was very thoroughly done. You cued in with me. I'm like, is this like the way? Does this feel good to be introduced this way? And it was just really a wonderful sort of capturing of the last 15 years of my life. So I appreciate that. It's been a very long journey in entrepreneur world.
Awesome. So I usually start with someone as a kid and take them up to the the present, but we need to start in 2008.
Wow.
I feel the need to. Challenges happen for each one of us,
Yeah.
and we can respond in a large number of ways.
Yep.
So in 2008, you were laid off.
Yeah. Yes.
How did you decide to go down the amazing path you went down?
So, thank you for asking and noticing and recognizing. I think what happened is, I've wanted to be a teacher since I was 5. So I'm not one of those people, and I'm so grateful for this. I have a lot of other challenges, or challenges in other areas of my life, but the purpose thing where like, do you know what that big question that some people have is, I don't know my purpose. I haven't discovered what I want to do on the planet. Like I've known my whole life I wanted to be a teacher. So I did all the things to be able to be a teacher, and I ended up on SDSU campus and I was teaching, and I basically thought I had my dream job. And at the same time, I had started a business making Italian ice, which was it was named after my dad. It's, Italian ice, if you don't know, most people do at this point, but at that time in 2007 and 8, no one knew in San Diego what it was, but it was a sorbet, and it was an all natural sorbet, and it's very big on the East Coast. And I was an East Coast transplant. So I was like, oh, I'm going to bring over this cool idea and this cool product, and everybody's going to love it. I'm going to make a ton of money. Everybody here is just going to really enjoy this, and I'll be able to teach because I want to, and not because I have to. And there will be no like financial thing around it, because I'll start this business and I'll see what it is to run my own life in that way. And I've always been curious about, kind of running my own life and being a business owner. So when I was in grad school, about a year into grad school, I started that business, and I was selling Italian ice at street fairs and farmers markets, and got laid off. And when I got laid off, I was like drinking a margarita, and I was just like, I can do this better. Like, this is a 700 calorie cocktail that tastes gross. It's really sugary and it's kind of gross. And there was no such thing as skinny cocktails at that point. That they had just like, there was like me and, 20 other people thinking of the same idea, namely Skinny Girl Margarita. Bethany Frankel was the person who just massively did so much with this whole segment of the market. And I had already had the Italian ice. I had the sorbet. So I started mixing it with liquor in my kitchen, and my friends were all kind of enjoying it that way. And that's where it started. So the layoff was challenging because I love teaching. I thought I was doing my dream job. I thought I'd be at SDSU for a while. I was really enjoying being on campus. I was teaching at my alma mater. It was really cool. And then, life has that, as you said, those challenges and those shifts, and you kind of have to pivot and roll with them, because we don't always have control over, how everything unfolds. So that's how that started.
So do you remember precisely where you were drinking the margarita?
Yes. So I had this one bar that I went to. It was the first bar I ever went to in San Diego. It's no longer there. It was called Gringo's. And then became Fat Fish. It's no longer there. It's gone, which is sad. It's on Mission Boulevard. It's right on the beach. It's like right back from the beach a little bit. And it was the first. It was funny because it was the first bar I ever went to when I landed in San Diego to visit a friend, when I was trying to consider whether I was going to move here or not. It was the first place we went to. That's where he took me to go get lunch or dinner. I can't remember. And so it was my first place. And it was also the first place I went to for my first big account. So it was like when I created the product, and then I was like, okay, we really need to sell like a lot of this to make this all work. We just went to Gringo's. That was the place we went to try to sell first. And we got the deal. And that was basically a restaurant that made everything work, because they put the product on the gun. So they went through a ton of product, and they kept the business alive for a while as we were like building the business. So it was, kind of synchronistic in that way.
So Gringo's has a big play.
Yeah, it was a Mexican restaurant. So it was a big place, and they utilized my product on the gun at the, they were using it for all their margaritas. So they basically.
But you're very grateful for Gringo's for a variety of reasons.
A ton of reasons. It was a big win. And I remember I don't love sales. Like, sales is not my thing. That was what I learned through the process of being an entrepreneur in the food and beverage industry. Like, you really have to hit the pavement, and you do for every business, but the food and beverage industry is a very particular, challenging industry. And I went there with a friend of mine when I had the first bottle made. And the other kind of synchronistic thing about my product was it was originally called SoCal Local. That was the first rendition of the product. And then we rebranded it to Bear Mixers. And then when the company sold, the company that bought my company rebranded it to Bear Organic Mixers. We made it an organic product. But the very first 52 cases that I got when I launched the product launched the same day as Skinny Girl Margarita. Same day. And it was not meant to be. Skinny Girl Margarita was like the brand in the industry. It was the ready to use product. And it helped me so much because I would go into bars and restaurants and try to sell a low calorie margarita mix, and nobody cared until that product became popular. And then once that became popular, it became much easier to sell. But anyway, so it showed up on my doorstep. It was SoCal Local at the time. And I took it into Gringos, and with a friend, and I made kind of a big fuss about it at the bar so that the managers would come over, because it was like a boring night. There was nothing going on. The product had just come in. So that was my sales technique. I went in and kind of made a big fuss about it with my friend.
When you say make a big fuss about it, what do you mean?
Well, so I just said, I was like, oh my God, it's here. It's finally done. You have to look at it. And my friend was like, oh my God, it's amazing. Made a big fuss. And it created attention because it was a really dead night. It was a Monday night. Nobody was in the bar. And so then the bar manager came over and was like, what are you bringing to my bar? What is this? And I was just like, you should try. You should put in some of your margaritas. And it was right before Cinco de Mayo. And it was a big win. They were like, cool, we love it. This is awesome. It tastes good. And, we gave them a bunch of free product for Cinco de Mayo, and then we were in.
Did you plan for it to be right before Cinco de Mayo?
I didn't. I didn't. I'm not that smart. It was just I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I just went in and I was just excited and knew that I could get some attention maybe if I went in at a certain time, but I wasn't thinking about all those dots. Looking back, I was not aware. But I was aware that I needed to get a win fast because we were running out of cash. And, we had an SBA loan. I mean, the other story too is if you want to talk about challenges, and how life just pivots you all over the place. I walked into the bank maybe 5 months before the market crashed in 2008 when they were just handing out loans to people that should have never been given loans. And I went in, I was like, I have a great idea for this Italian ice company. I walked in, they gave me $40,000 without even a speck of a business plan. I should have never been given that money, but it was 2008 and they were just handing cash out like it was candy. And, I didn't know any better. I was 23 and my business partner was 24 and he went to school, for accounting. And I thought he could run the numbers in the business. And turns out college doesn't really teach you that much about practical life. It's all theory. It's all and I'm a teacher at college. I love teaching at college, but we have to be aware of that. Half of it is all theory. It's not practical. So, and I'll get into that when we talk about teaching, but yeah, so that was, it was a lot. 2008, getting laid off, starting that business, then rebranding it into another product, being on the hook for, what I thought was a lot of money at 23, $40K was an enormous amount of money, and just having to really hustle. I worked 3 jobs to make my life and my business, stay above water. So it was crazy. I worked 24/7. One of my investors invested in the company because I was sending him emails at 3 a.m. and he felt bad. He was like, I know this girl will protect my money because she works 24/7. She's sending me emails consistently at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it was crazy.
Wow. So let's go back a little bit. You were a college professor at age 23.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, I mean, it's, that's not really that impressive, I guess. I was just, I finished my graduate degree and my professor, one of my mentors at SDSU just gave me a shot. He thought I'd be, great. I worked, he was my mentor there and he was an awesome supporter and wanted to see me teaching in a classroom and knew I could handle it. So when a course opened and the position was available, he just said, are you ready to do this? And it's funny because it mirrored exactly what happened when I graduated undergrad. So when I'm from the East Coast, when I graduated from University of Delaware, when I left my senior year, I was very close to my teachers. I babysat a number of them. I was class president. I was vice president of the school. Like, so I was like very ingrained in the school, and I loved my high school so much. And I still have an enormous amount of connection there. And
you mean college, right?
no, at my high school. So what I'm saying is I was hired to teach at the high school I graduated from, just like I was hired to teach at the graduate school. So like I taught at my high school, and then I came to San Diego State after teaching at high school for a year. I came to San Diego State, I got my master's degree, and then I taught at San Diego State, and then I was laid off. So like I enjoyed I enjoyed the act of like going back to teach where I was taught, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'll say like what I learned in that journey, like that little journey is how much setting goals really supports, right? Because I set a goal when I left high school, like I will be back here to teach. And like 5 days after I graduated, my high school called me back and was like, we have an opening. Do you want to teach? So it was, it was a cool like experience to have right out of college.
So let's go back to the kitchen, and you're mixing up a new margarita mix. What?
I said, let's do that. It's such a long story.
Oh, I want to. I hope you agree, but so a lot of people get to the point of coming up with a new idea and doing a type of prototype, but then moving from that point to building a successful business that you can sell. That's a whole nother game. How did you learn to play that game so quickly?
Oh, well, it wasn't really quick, right? The whole journey was like an 8-year journey. It was my entire 20s. I used to say that Bear Mixers was like my baby, like I didn't have a baby because I had Bear Mixers at that time. I learned, like, I feel like I learned, I don't know, 80% of the hardest business lessons in that business, everything the hard way. And now I study this quote, or I say this quote all the time by Richard Bach, is like, we teach best what we most need to learn. And, during that time in my 20s, from 23 to about 30, I sold the company, halfway through my 30th year. And I wore all the hats in the business right out of like delivering the product out of the back of my Hyundai. Like I did everything in the business. My business partner that originally started it with me got totally just burned out and pivoted into a different thing. So it was sort of halfway through, all on me to sell it and do all the things. And so I learned because I had to, because I didn't have a choice, because I wasn't going to default on my loans. I wasn't going to declare bankruptcy. Success at that time for me was like finishing what I had started and seeing it through and getting out from under the debt and really just like doing what I needed to do for the company. Now, like in hindsight, I think I needed to go through that entire journey, because there's certain moments now where I'm like, man, if I wouldn't have experienced this one moment in Bear Mixers year 7 or Bear Mixers year 8, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now, able to give this insight to this entrepreneur that I'm speaking to. So it was all worth it, and it was all necessary, and it was all as it should be. But it was hard, it was really hard. And you have to, like, as a startup entrepreneur in an industry where you don't really know anything about, and I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs, like it was wacky. Like I just jumped into it because I believed in myself and I trusted in myself and I thought I had a good idea, so I would make it work. But it was hard. And I will say the thing that kind of helped me break through everything was mentors. So like if I could give anybody a takeaway from this conversation of the 8 years I had in my 20s, like I would not have gotten through it. I probably would have figured it out somehow because I figure stuff out, but my mentors were everything. And still to this day, like, and I've had different mentors for different phases and different areas of my life, but that was how I did it. I found people that knew better than me, and I dropped my ego and I asked for help and support. And I found a way to hopefully give back value to them, so they felt inspired and not like drained of energy. Like they felt like invigorated by working with me, not drained. So that was the key. Mentors was the key.
Um, you, you must have also had a willingness to implement a lot of what your mentors were advising you to do.
Oh yeah, 100%. I had one mentor. Her name was Cheryl Edison, and I don't even know how to express. She's given me thousands of hours. It's insanity how much effort she's put into my life. And now I work with her. I send clients to her, and we have a bit of a different dynamic now, but she's still certainly a mentor and a guide for me. And she helped me with emails. She helped me with navigating hard conversations. She helped me sell the company. And then I had another mentor, Max, who helped me open the deal. So I had one mentor that helped me open the deal to sell my company, and one mentor that helped me close it. And I'll say, like, when you sell your first company, it's very emotional in my experience. And I was so attached to it, and I had sacrificed so much for it. I went through a breakup right before I sold the company, in large part because of the company. I lost, a best friend over the company because he no longer wanted to, he kind of just left me high and dry with the company. There was a lot of sacrifices financially, mentally, emotionally that I made. And I would say that probably every startup entrepreneur on their first business has some kind of story like that. Like, I am not even saying it's unique. It's me. It's like all of us have to go through it. And it's part of what you have to go through as an entrepreneur anyway. But yeah, those two people, what they told me to do, I basically implemented without question for the most part.
What would you say to an entrepreneur contemplating selling their first company that would possibly make their journey selling a company easier?
That's a great question. And I haven't answered it in a while. I want to think about that. So, excuse me. The first thing that comes to me is that selling your company is like dating. Actually, business and dating are very similar. So when you are looking for, I'll put it this way, I'll put it in the investor bucket. Like, let's say you're not even looking to sell your company, but it kind of feels the same. When you're looking for investors, there's this period of time where you meet the person, you do due diligence on whether they're actually qualified and capable of investing in the company. You have to assess whether they want the same vision that you want and whether it's worth your time and energy to connect with them. And then there's this period of time once you kind of figure that stuff out, or once you have some awareness that they could be a potential fit, where you think of the big vision and you talk about the future and you get excited about the possibilities, and you get excited when they text you or when they email you. You start noticing their level of communication and their pattern of communication, all the stuff you do in your first 6 to 8 weeks of dating with somebody new. It's all the same. And then when you're looking at multiple buyers, when I sold my company, I had 3 different people that came out of the woodworks at the same time that were interested in giving me money or buying my company. So it was this weird experience where I had to assess, you have to assess who's real, step one, right? It's okay, this person's interested in doing something with my company. Can they actually do the thing that they're suggesting? Do they have the capital? Do they have the desire? Do they have the industry experience? Or are they just going to it's just exciting for them to talk about and it's all BS kind of, right? Because you have to get really discerning when you're looking for investors or when you're looking to sell your company. You have to get very discerning about the people that are interested in engaging with you.
Because I suppose you could spend a lot of time on someone who doesn't have
so much time. It took me 6 months to close my deal. And it wasn't some big payout. It wasn't a huge deal. I wasn't making that much money. It was really impressive that the company sold it all. I credit the company selling to those 2 mentors, but also from an energetic goal setting quantum physics experience, which is what I teach now. I meditated for 6 months and sold the company I started meditating when I went through a breakup, and I sold the company 6 months later at kind of against all odds. The company probably shouldn't have sold, and it did. And the goals that I had set for that sale happened. So, it's a lot of how do I get my thoughts, my speech, and my feelings in alignment and really understand what I want, what I desire, what my vision is. How do I call in people that have that same vision as me and where we're complementing? So they want to purchase and I want to sell, and it's a nice match. If you don't have a lot of leverage, which I didn't, you have to be really careful too. Like I had somebody that wanted to purchase the company from me and wanted to take, 50% of the company, but not give me anything for it. And it was like on a hope and a prayer. Like I'll do all this stuff and then we'll just see if it works. And it could have been okay because I didn't have any leverage and I would have had a good business partner in the deal. But it was a little risky because there was just not a lot of promises. Like there weren't a lot of things on paper that I could hold on to. And sometimes I think about that, like that deal sounds terrible as I'm saying it out loud, but the details of it could have been okay if there was more awareness around what the person was really wanting to provide and wanting to put it on paper. So it's just, you have to be really discerning and you have to really know where you stand. Like get really clear how much leverage you have. And I'll say this last piece too, and maybe this is the thing for everybody to hear, actually. This is the thing. If you don't want to eat, sleep, breathe, dream, and sacrifice for your business, especially for your first one, you shouldn't be doing it because it's too much effort. It's too much energy. There's too much of a learning curve for your first business to do it when you're not like obsessed with it. I don't mean this for all your businesses. I don't think you need to be totally aligned and totally obsessed with all of your businesses. If you're a really good entrepreneur and you've bought and sold, or, you sold a bunch of companies, you can probably do some companies that you don't love the industry they're in because you're just good at business. But your first one, you have to be kind of obsessed with it. And I just got to a point where I was not obsessed with mine and I just needed to be done with it. It just was no longer in alignment with me.
So I want to talk about a piece. So you came to a point where you were not obsessed with your company, but instead of all the things a human could do when they're discontent, you decided to meditate for 6 months.
Yeah.
Can you describe at all how meditating helped you become clearer?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went through a massive breakup the summer I turned 30. And I recognized in that same moment, all of the jobs I was doing to like keep my head above water were done. Like the jobs disappeared. The business was not doing well. The relationship disappeared and I was exhausted. And so basically everything in my life kind of came crashing down. Like my 2008 challenge of getting laid off was nothing compared to my 2013 challenge. It just wasn't. It was a mess. And I was like, not eating, not sleeping, totally stressed, totally depleted. It was not good. And I woke up one day and I was just like, wow, like everything in my life has fallen apart at the same time. In first world problems, I was still healthy and I still had wonderful people in my life and all that. I'm just saying first world problems, things were not going well. And I had to notice that. And I had to go like, I'm not in alignment. Something is not working here because it felt like I was pushing a boulder up a hill all the time. And that's not, if you're in alignment and you're doing the thing you're supposed to be doing on the planet, you might have moments of that, but you don't feel that way all the time. And my first business, it was like, I would go 10 steps forward and like 5 steps back all the time. Like I would get a win and then I would get a loss and I would get a win and I would get a bigger loss. And it was just not in alignment. It was the definition of not.
In that what you're describing as an overwhelming expenditure of energy, huh?
Yes, correct. And it was not all the effort I was putting in. I was getting back a ton of good lessons that I absolutely use now. And I wouldn't, if I would have never done Bear Mixers, I'd be teaching on a college campus and I'd be making no money. I mean, teaching college is the thing I love to do, but you make no money doing it. That's just the truth. Unless you have PhD. I mean, there's other ways you can make money, but it's just, as a result of the 8 years I spent on Bear Mixers, I have a lot more opportunity and I love coaching, and coaching instills it's all the teaching stuff too. And it's brilliant. I have the most amazing clients. So it was all for a purpose, but in my 30th year, I was just done. I was maxed out. And so
So you're massively struggling. How did you decide to start meditating at that time?
I had another mentor, Stephen. His name is Stephen Cox, and he gave me access to a bunch of his personal development material. And one of the pieces was this abundance meditation. So I started listening to this abundance meditation. It was a 12-minute guided meditation, and it just brought peace and calm like to my nervous system. Excuse me. And it was guided. And there's this one part of the meditation where you start to visualize these different things that you want to call in. And I started doing that. And like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks after, I started getting some movement in the sale of the company. And it's a much longer story, but the gist of it was, I committed to getting present, to getting into the now. I committed to this meditation. I did it a number of times, multiple times a day. And I just started to surrender. I stopped fighting so hard. I basically said a number of times, I would pray and I would just be like, I'm done. Like, I give it to you. God, universe, higher self, Mother Mary. Like, I just prayed. I was not in a good place. And I just kept surrendering, essentially. I had had enough and there was no more fight in me. And that was my first lesson in like what it means to surrender and what it means to meditate and start to get in alignment, and what it means to be present and in the now and set intentions with like a surrender aspect to it. Not like this like needy attachment for something to work out the way you think it should work out. Like by this time during this summer, I was just like, I'm done. I don't know what else to say. I need help. I surrender. And that's what happened. It all came together within 6 months of that.
So your part of your intention was selling your company.
Yeah.
Can you say what's the difference between making that example, selling a company, a needy intention, versus a expansive, open-hearted intention?
Yeah. So like, it's a great question. So the first 8 years of that business, I was like, I want to make money on this company. I think I know the right way to do it. I want to sell to a bunch of bars and a bunch of restaurants. And I just want to have it all over the place. And, I need money for this. And I would talk a lot about being broke or being a broke female entrepreneur, never having enough money to do the things I wanted to do. And it was sort of like, I spoke that into existence a lot, that I was like this broke female 30s, single entrepreneur that was just like driving around in my Hyundai, delivering product. Like I had this identity around it and I had this story around it, and it wasn't serving me, but there was some kind of ego attachment to it because, if you tell, Tony Robbins says this, a belief is just a thing you keep on saying so many times, it becomes real and true. And so you start telling these stories, or you start making jokes about yourself. Like one of the things I used to do is this like sort of self-deprecation humor all the time. Just like, oh, I'm just like this 30-year-old single female entrepreneur. Like, just like only I can afford, all I can afford is happy hours at the restaurant that sells my product, where I'm drinking my own product. Like, and it was like this probably protection mechanism. It's a little bit of my sense of humor anyway. Self-deprecation is kind of what I do sometimes, but it wasn't serving me. It wasn't making me more successful. It wasn't making me more wealthier. It wasn't making me sell more product. Like it was just keeping me stuck in this identity and in this box and in this story that was just this cycle, was just on and on. And I just remember one day just waking up after all this stuff had happened this one summer and just being like, I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to be this like single 30 female startup entrepreneur that's broke anymore. I don't want to be like self-deprecating. I don't want to tell this story anymore. I'm done. And so the neediness was like this attachment to this identity and this story, and like it needs to be this way, and I need to make the money this way, and a successful entrepreneur needs to look this way in this industry. And then the release was just sort of like, God, I'm done. Like, I don't have anything left in me. Like, I've been pushing a boulder up a hill for 8 years. Clearly, this is what it is. Clearly, you don't want me to be doing this, or you would make it freaking work. So show me what the F you want me to do. Like, just show me. Because clearly you don't think I'm supposed to be doing this, or it would be working, because I had the experience of things working. I graduated from college and went back to the school I wanted to teach at. I graduated San Diego State, went back. There were things that had happened in my life that were easy and they were in flow and they were in sync and everything just worked. And this thing was not that thing.
So you had a baseline feeling from past experiences of what flow looked like. And you knew this was not it.
This was not it. This is so not it. And it was cool because I thought, well, I love the fact that I'm a female entrepreneur that like created something out of nothing in my kitchen and that people enjoy it. And that it gives women this ability to drink, enjoy each other's company guilt-free. Like that I really resonated with and I thought was super cool. But the beverage industry, cocktail mixers, drinking stuff for low calories, like that stuff didn't resonate with me after a while. I was just like, I don't even care about calories. Like I'm not some big workout freak. If you know me, you know that. Like I don't worry about calories and I don't work out that much. So like, why am I selling a product to people who really care about that stuff? I don't even care, So
you said this 8 years set the stage for the coaching you do now.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
How did this 8 years of pushing stuff up hills set the stage for the ease and the joy you found now in your work?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. So I think I just got so clear because when I sold the company, I worked for the company that bought my company and I worked with them for 1.5 years. And then I had another one of those moments where I woke up one day and I was just like, man, I'm so done. Like, I'm not just done with running this thing by myself. I'm done with all of it. I'm done with the industry. I'm done with everything that this has to do. I'm just done. It's worn out its welcome in my life. And I'm so grateful for Bear Mixers. Cause again, like I said, it was like my baby in my 20s. I learned most of my hard lessons there. I'm so grateful for that journey. I just didn't want to relive it anymore. Like I just was done. And
so you're grateful for that story, but you wanted a new story.
I wanted a new story. It's exactly right. So I woke up and I left the company that bought my company and it was all fine. Like we parted ways and that's a longer story too, but it's not super relevant at this point. So I'll just kind of move beyond it. And I took a year off and I lived with my best friend in LA. I lived in his 3rd bedroom, which was actually an office and it had like French doors with glass windows. So I had to like put a curtain over the doors so I could have some kind of privacy. He gave me this like total kick-ass rental deal so I could live there with him. And I just kind of reset and we laughed a lot and we gallivanted around West Hollywood and I met a wonderful person that I dated for a little while there. And it was just like a reset. It was like a rebirth and a reset. And I got creative and I did some writing and, just did some stuff that I had ignored for a really long time. And then I moved back to San Diego and I basically went back to, I read The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. He's, huge part of my story. One of my first personal development people that I ever paid attention to was him in The Secret when I was 18. So I resonated with him and I read that book. Another mentor gave me that book and I started doing some of the practices in it. And long story short, I manifested, teaching again, because I really wanted to get back in the classroom. And I did a number of manifesting things, meditation, goal setting, intention setting, all the stuff I teach now to clients and really kind of magically and synchronistically in the flow. I was back in the flow. 90 days later, I was offered a position also because of another mentor who helped me. So you can see a theme here. I was offered a position teaching at UCSD and the theme of the class that I was asked to teach was called The Pursuit of Happiness. So it was just this.
So you manifested teaching a class called The Pursuit of Happiness.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty amazing. It was like one of the best manifestations of my life. And I'm still at UCSD and I'm still teaching those 2 classes, the writing and communications class. It's not called The Pursuit of Happiness anymore. I do still teach some of the principles. It's a different theme now, but yeah, it was really, really amazing how it happened. And that is how, when you're in flow, when you're in alignment, when you're doing the thing you're meant to be doing on the planet, that's the kind of stuff that shows up. It's just kind of with ease and grace comes into your life. But we live in a universe that abides by the law of duality and love and fear and happiness and sadness. They're all 2 sides of the same coin and you can't experience one without the other. Force versus flow, 2 sides of the same coin. So it's like you have to experience force to understand what it is to be in flow. And that's okay. And so my whole 20s was a force moment. And, professionally, my whole 30s, I've basically been in the flow. I've had a couple of hiccups in my 30s, but not many, knock on wood, in business. Thank God.
So, sometimes people, myself included, like to be say. I mean, we feel like we are in flow, but then we go but.
Right.
Like we say, I'm in flow, but I'm not making millions of dollars yet. What would you say to all the times we begin to doubt the feeling of flow and try to create caveats?
Oh, that's a great question too. So I never use the word but, I only use the word and, right?
Mm.
So every time you would say the word but, and all my clients, most of my clients, I say this to too. You say like substitute that for and, right? Because it just linguistically, it just does all kinds of things for your neural pathways. But and so what I'll say to your question, I think is, oh gosh, I went down a rabbit hole. Ask me the question one more time so I can make sure I'm more direct about it.
So I've noticed often people second guess the flow then, like I'm having fun, I'm doing something I love, but I'm not making the money I want.
I see.
But yeah, but this, but that, but.
Got it. Okay, brilliant. So thank you for doing that. So what I would say to this, and because I am that way, right? Like, so I love what I do. I have the most incredible clients. I love what I do all day. And I would love for some of my business to be more online, like for because I'm not making $1 million or millions of dollars, and I probably won't because my time is so attached to my money, right? Because I'm doing one-on-one coaching, I'm doing team coaching. So what I would say is this: the first step is to go like, am I in alignment or not? Am I in flow or not? Am I on purpose or not? Am I doing the thing that lights me up? Am I doing a thing that I'm healthfully obsessed with, right? So the first step is to go like, do all those things check out? Okay. And if they do, then let's just say you're doing the thing you're meant to be doing, you're in flow. And then you have to get back to the drawing board of like, okay, what is my desire here? Like, what is my manifestation? What am I calling in? Do I want to make $1 million, $5 million? Like, what is that number? And then the third piece, and I have this whole thing when I teach clients, it's the 5-step process for manifestation. And it has to do with like placing an order with the universe is like placing an order at a restaurant. It's a very similar process, right? So one, you have this desire, right? I have a desire to eat because I'm hungry. And then you get more specific in step 2. You go, okay, I have a desire to eat because I'm hungry and I want a burger with fries. And then step 3 is, okay, I'm going to take an inspired action to make sure I get this desire met. I'm not going to sit on my couch and expect that a burger is going to show up on my door. I'm going to get in my car and drive to the restaurant or place the to-go order or whatever. And then step 4 is placing that order. What do you specifically want? Which is kind of what we're talking about right now. I want to make $1 million. I want to do it in the most efficient and effective way. I want to do it at XYZ kind of thing. What's the inspired action that I'm going to take in order to get that desire? And then step 5 is that release and that surrender piece, right? So it's like, if you are listening to this podcast and if you are going, okay, I'm in flow and some of these other things are not lined up yet, what do? I would say, okay, well, get really specific about what those things are and then track and make sure that you're taking all the inspired actions to get those things. And if you're not, then do we need to hire more people? Do we need to hire a coach? Do we need to cut corners in other areas? Do we need to do a different business development model? Whatever. Like I am actually in that process right now. Like I love what I do and I'm interested in creating some other different channels. So it's not so all on me to like jump on the phone every day to, coach people. So it's not the only channel that I'm relying on.
What was step 5 again?
Step 5 is the most, I would say is like the most, well, they're all important, but step 5 is the surrender piece. It's like, okay, I had the desire. I went to the restaurant. I got specific about the desire. I went to the restaurant, took the inspired action. I placed the order, and then I trusted that in a certain reasonable amount of time, the order is going to show up because I'm worthy of getting what I order. I have the money to pay for it. And I took the inspired action to come to the restaurant. It's that process that I talked about with meditating to sell the company. It's like, okay, I'm good. I placed the order. I was specific with the universe, what I wanted. Now I'm going to release and surrender. And it's really a hard, very hard thing to do. A lot of people struggle with it. But it's so important in the process.
So this is another place I think people, including me, get hung up.
Yeah. Most people
what happens if the order doesn't come in the expected amount of time? Because it's tempting to get all frustrated, fearful, angry.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So it's a great question. And what I say to people, and by the way, like coming back to what I said when the call first started is like, or the podcast first started is like, we teach best what we most need to learn, right? So like everything that I'm saying here, I've struggled with myself. I have to remind myself, like I always want to say that out loud. But when you're, the thing that we don't do when we place an order is we don't say to the waiter exactly how much time is it going to take for the burger to show up, and exactly how many fries are going to be on the plate, and who is the chef that's making the burger, and what is the stove that they're cooking on. We don't do that. What's the grill? Like, we don't do that. We also don't stop the waiter after we've placed the order 5 minutes later and go, by the way, I don't want a burger, give me dessert. Like, we don't do that, right? Because it's annoying, because someone might spit in our food, or
because it's annoying.
or the speaker doesn't like that. And so maybe the universe is the same. I mean, here's the thing. It's very tricky and challenging, and it is the game. And, Abraham Hicks talks about this all the time too. It's when you're manifesting, the challenging part is waiting for the order to show up. That's the most, and the universe, the more you can, this is my learning, my experience, the more you can trust whoever you trust, whether it's your higher self, God, Jesus, like whoever you call on when you pray, because prayers, intentions, goals, it's all the same. It's the same stuff, different words. Please give me a break. It's all the same. I don't care whether you call it a prayer or an intention or a spell. I don't care. It's all the same. So what it is, though, or an incantation, the thing is recognizing, I get this is the hardest process. This is the hardest part of the process for everyone, is to wait for the thing to show up.
To be patient. And it gets so much harder the more you set the intention. Like, do you know how many full moon ceremonies I did? Like, I'm, woo-woo, I'm down the rabbit hole, I'm spiritual, I'm all those things. I did so many full moon ceremonies for my finances. Like, it was crazy before I sold that company. I did all kinds of stuff. And it was just like, in the moment that I finally went, like, I surrender, the stuff started lining up. So sometimes I think the universe is really like testing us. And I know it's really annoying. It doesn't feel fair. But it's tricky. Sometimes you just have to release and surrender. Or, and if not, like, if that, some people, when they've been waiting for a manifestation for so long, or they're so clear what they want, they feel like they need to be in control some way, right? So if you are one of those people, which I certainly am, the two things that I do when I get into that impatient space is I find stuff to be grateful for, because when you're grateful, you manifest more stuff, because it's all a vibration thing. And it sounds really cliche and it's really annoying, but it's true. It's so annoying. I know how annoying it is as I say it, but you find stuff to be grateful for because it puts you in the present moment, and we manifest in the present moment. The problem is when you are going, where is my manifestation? And you keep asking where my manifestation is. You are living in the future and not in the present. And you're not grateful, and you're not present, and you're not in the now. And it's not the way to manifest, because you're not in alignment. You're just like running, like, you're like this, and your vibration gets wonky because you're impatient, and impatience is a low vibration thing, and it ends up repelling stuff instead of calling stuff in. It's a whole map of consciousness thing. I could go way down the rabbit hole on it, but the gist of it is basically like, every time you ask, where is it? You're out of alignment. You're not in the present. And so it's much more challenging for the universe to deliver. So you end up repelling the wish every time you keep going, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Waiter, where's my burger? That's annoying. So how I'm going to throw you a curveball, but I'm telling you that so you'll be ready, okay?
Perfect. I can do it.
So how has being an only child entered into how you've created your life?
I love that you're asking this question. No one has ever asked me it before. You are clearly very good at what you do. And no one's ever.
And then I'm an only child, so that might help too.
I love that you're asking it. Okay, so there's two things. Number one, I'm very close with my parents, and I live in San Diego, and they live on the East Coast, and I'm an East Coast Italian girl, and I'm an only child. And they never put this pressure on me, but I always put pressure on me. And I think as an only child, I did it to I wanted them to be with me, and I wanted to move them out here, and I wanted to support them. And I just wanted to they were so good to me. So I wanted to spoil them. And again, I'm very close with them. So it was really in alignment for me to do this and to feel this way. It was nothing that they were doing at all. And so part of it was I could just teach and that would be great, but I will never make enough money to do that for my parents. I'll just never be able to move them here. I'll never be able to spoil them. I just won't be able to do that. So that was part of the desire to have a business, was I'll run my life more. I'll be more in control of my life. I'll spoil my parents more. It was a money thing. Only child connects to that. And then I hated being an only child. I felt really gypped not having siblings. It was really depressing for me. I went through a kind of a depressive moment when I was 10. I thought I'd be a great sister, and I wanted to be one. And I found chosen siblings through my whole life, which I'm super grateful for. I went to high school with quadruplets, and everybody thought I was one of them. And so a lot of the universe, we were all Italian. And so I kind of looked like I could be a member of the family, and they kind of embraced me that way. But it's not the same. I wanted my own siblings. And so it's been a deep challenge for me in my life because it felt like a big loss. And I'm okay with it now, and I've accepted it, but I'm not happy about it. And I never was. So it sort of inspired business. It inspired me to start a business because I felt responsible for my parents being protected in that way. So does that answer the question?
Fascinating. Thank you. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, what are common communication I don't want to say traps, but common. Where do we typically, as people, get stuck in the swamp in terms of communication?
Such a good question. So, gosh, I think, of course, I always tell people this when I'm coaching them too. It's only through my lens, right? It's only through my perspective, my experience. I can only speak through that. Other communication coaches might say different. But what I would say is that most people get stuck in communication because of their own insecurities and their own perspective on things. And we all, the lens that we look at life through that guides our communication is all based on our experiences, our family background, our traumas, our DNA, our genes, all that stuff that shapes who we are creates the lens that we communicate through. So a lot of times people will say, well, if it were me, I would have done, or she shoulda, woulda, coulda said or done this thing. And in communication, you go well, when I'm coaching and when I'm teaching conscious communication, I'm well, that doesn't really make any sense because they're not you. They don't have the exact experiences you have. They don't look at life through the same lens that you do. So it's all kind of silly and not relevant. So how do we actually try to consider the other person's lens and the other person's perspective inside of this communication situation to bridge the gap so we can both authentically, genuinely communicate for a win-win here? And so people get wonky, or communication goes sideways generally, in my experience, when someone projects their stuff onto someone else. They should have done this. If they would have done that, if they could have, they could have done that. It's just the coulda, woulda, shoulda conditional stuff that really messes communication up. And then people's own insecurities, right? So it's like we struggle the most with people in communication when they feel hurt or they feel not seen, valued, heard, or understood for some reason. And then there's a block in how to effectively, consciously state where the mishap happened. You know, because some people, they grow up and they were taught that if you express your needs or you communicate where you feel hurt, you get abused or you get yelled at or you get diminished or you get dismissed or, you know, you don't get your needs met. So they keep their mouth shut and they don't know how to say things, and then it bottles up and then they get resentment. Like there's so many, you know, there's a bazillion different reasons for why people don't consciously communicate. But that's what I've witnessed.
How do you, and this is a big question too, and we're wrapping up, but briefly, how do you teach someone to be more empathetic towards another person's view?
Yeah, that's also a great question. So I think what's really important for people to understand, and I do this with my students a lot, one of the things that I'll do is I'll teach them something that's kind of meaningful and maybe potentially has a little bit of drama in it. I'll tell a story that's personal, like something that they would be curious and like something that I know I've got their attention for like 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. And then I'll stop and I'll go, okay, everybody, I want everybody to share. We're going to go around the room and I want you to share the thing that landed on you the most, the thing that was significant to you, the thing that was the most jarring or compelling or intriguing or repelling or, you know, like one thing. And what they'll start to see is that every single person says something different. Now, they might say some things that are similar, right? They might connect to certain pieces of the story that I'll share and they'll say something similar, but no one will say the exact same thing around that room. And what you start to see when you do this exercise is enough is like, yeah, people are really connected to, because it's all we can do, viewing something through our lens, through our perspective. And there's no way around it. It's just the nature of being human, you know? So really people understanding how people can have different viewpoints and it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything about you because someone doesn't see it from your perspective. It's just their perspective, you know? So it's a skill. It's like a muscle that needs to be built to understand that. And you have to really be open to the personal growth and the development and the reflection and the self-awareness. Like you kind of have to be on this self-awareness, personal growth journey to really be empathetic to someone else's view, because it takes a lot. So when you're triggered, you don't want to think about someone else's view. You're just like, I'm right. And I know, and it's because it's this way because, you know, and I get this way. I get like super indignant when I really feel like something, when I'm really triggered. Conscious communication goes out the window when I'm really triggered. You know, it takes me a minute. I'm human. So we have to be really willing to notice when we're triggered, notice when we're projecting, be open to feedback, know that it's a never-ending story. You're never going to get it right all the time. Give yourself some grace, give everybody else grace. Like it's a journey every single day.
Speaking of not getting away all the time, in my business, I talk about doing my imperfect best. And what it means to me is I envision the best I want for myself and to offer others. And I go for it. And then when I make mistakes or experience obstacles, instead of using that as reason to stop, I try to learn from that stuff and move forward.
Yeah.
What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Natalie Susi?
That's a great question. Doing my imperfect best. I think doing my imperfect best means to me like calling myself out when I'm triggered, when I'm angry, when I'm frustrated, when I've had an overreaction, like recognizing that and calling myself out and just kind of honoring the inner child in me that had to have that temper tantrum, and then saying to whoever it landed on, like, hey, I recognize that I overreacted and here's where it was coming from and I'll try to do better next time. Like just giving myself some grace instead of beating myself up because I, have a tendency to do that. So for me, it's building the muscle around honoring like the inner child that had the overreaction in communication, and then honoring the person that I overreacted to and apologizing.
So honoring both the inner child and the person who was
Yep.
the recipient of the.
Yep.
I like the idea of honoring both.
Oh yeah. And the inner child stuff is it's so big, because usually when we react poorly in communication, it's because one of our parts is disrupted. So it's an inner child thing. It's, hey, my 6-year-old is speaking and yelling right now, or my 15-year-old is depressed and crying right now. And the overreaction is not me, it's a part of me. And like being able to actually notice that and express it is, it's unfortunately not something that we're taught unless we really seek this stuff out. Like this is the stuff should be teaching in high school and college, not calculus.
It is.
Like if I could change the world in any way, I would change high school curriculum. Like I would change educational curriculum to teach personal development instead of calculus. And like a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, good call.
No
offense to any calculus teachers watching.
I don't mean it like that. I'm using calculus as like a fill in the blank. Like calculus is important too. So is biology. So is chemistry. So is English literature. They all have a place. We just need to make room for conscious communication too, and emotional development.
Yeah, yes, we do. If someone wants to find out more, is there any website they can go to or any?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they can just go to my website, which is just myfullname.com. So nataliesusi.com. I'm actually organizing, going there and getting like a manifesting principles freebie. So the 5 steps for manifestation will be on there. 6 steps for conscious communication will be available there. So yeah.
So go to nataliesusi.com.
You got it.
Thank you so much, my friend. It's been great talking with you.
Thank you so much, Jason. Have a beautiful day. This was awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, I love talking to amazing people who can really reflect on their life, and that's I mean it takes some doing. Like that geography of stories Natalie told us wasn't always an easy geography, but wasn't it fascinating to hear? And I hope it makes you want to go out and be more curious about the people around you, and ask more questions, and then also I invite you to be more curious about your own story, because we humans are legendary for discounting the power of our own story. And I'm still working on this too, but let's how about let's not do that. Let's appreciate other people's stories and appreciate our own stories. Anyway, those are my few reflections for today. Thanks for tuning in, whether live or later on. Leave a comment if you want. We love them. Tune in for another great podcast next week. Thanks for being you.